If you look at the history, we find many kingdoms arising from the dust. They grew and became empires. What is an empire? When a kingdom becomes big, then it becomes an empire. Every kingdom has a humble beginning. Long time ago, a group of persons decided to live together, and that became village. And the village grew into cities, and the cities grew into nations called kingdom. This earth has seen many kingdoms and also many empires. So, which is the biggest empire that the earth has seen till today? We have many big empires. The Mauryan Empire, the Mughal Empire, the Mongol Empire, the Russian Empire, the Chinese empires, and so on and so forth. But which one is the largest? The largest empire ever to be recorded by land mass is the British Empire. They said that the sun would never set in the British Empire because it was so big. It was present in the continent of America, in Africa, in Australia, and also in Asia. It has its presence in many other small and big islands spread all across the world. So the question comes that how did the British Empire grew up to be so large, grew up to be the largest in the history of mankind? Now, if we look at the physical aspects and say that back then the Britishers used to be very much hard-working, very much enterprising, they were adventurous, they were advanced, they were dedicated, they were sophisticated, and so on and so forth. But the island of Britain or England is relatively a small island situated in the continent of Europe. Now, Europe has many other small and big nations there. And when it comes to physical attributes and characteristics like discipline, hardworking, knowledge, the other European nations were also advanced. They were equal to British in all aspects, more or less. If the Britishers had the gun and the gunpowder, so did the other European nations had. But it was the Britishers who came to the top, became the largest, became the biggest empire. They built the biggest empire. And how was the Britishers who came from a small island to became the conqueror of the world, the ruler of the world? Now, the physical explanation is not satisfactory, that they were hardworking, that they were they're dedicated to their nation. And this kind of explanation does not satisfy us. So we have no other option to look on the invisible side, in the supernatural side of the Britishers then. What kind of God did they use to worship? That's the question that we have to ask. And the answer is simple. They were Protestant Christians. They were the followers of Jesus. Now you may ask that, do you mean to say that if you follow Jesus, then you become the conqueror of the world? No, that's not the case. That's what I am not trying to tell you. The point that I am telling you here is there was a time when the followers of Jesus, who called themselves Britishers, had become the greatest ruler of the planet. Almost all the nations of the planet was under their control. They were the superpower then. They were the superpower then. And the reason behind them is the supernatural. That is, that their God may had enabled them to conquer their world. Now the next question that comes in our mind, that why would their God, that is Jesus, would make them the conqueror of the world? If you are a Bible reading Christian, then you will know that your God is a gospel preaching God. Jesus is a gospel preaching God. There was a time when the world was under darkness. Gospel had not reached there. They were inside the darkness of superstition, in the darkness of poverty, in the darkness of ignorance and oppression. Various kind of discrimination, casteism, racism was prevalent at that time in this world. So in order to break those barriers, God enabled his people, Britishers, to move all across the world and spread the gospel. That was what their God, wanted to do. But did they do it? When Britishers was conquering land after land, nation after nation, did they engage in preaching gospel? Sadly not. Most of the Britishers that came from England were engaged and interested in profiteering, in making profit. They were there to rule and conquer and to build empires and kingdoms and make big profits. They wanted to earn big money and get back to home. They were not interested in gospel. So, in a way, we see that the Britishers came, they conquered the world, they ruled the world, and they were all gone. They never knew the reason why exactly their God gave them that opportunity. They never knew. They just came, they earned their profit, and they were gone. The missionaries came from behind, slowly, silently, meekly. They built some schools, some orphanages, some hospitals, and helping the native people, hoping that they would understand the gospel of Christ, the love of God. They became educated and the native became equal to their masters in knowledge. And it didn't take long time before the natives drove the foreign rulers out of their land, out of their country. The British Empire hence came to an end. They no longer existed as the largest empire. So the British dominance was bound with time. So certain time period was given to them to preach the gospel by their God Jesus, but they didn't do the way it should have been. There were some few people, God sent people who came from Europe and preached the gospel, and few believers rose up. They grew up in number, and that became a church. And even today we find a little population of them spread all across the nation. So we fail to understand the breakthrough that we receive in our life is actually not because of our own abilities. In this world, there are more capable persons are there, but God has chosen you and has given you the victory, the breakthrough. The door has been opened in your life such that the gospel can spread through you. This is what the world wants. This is what the Lord wants in your life. The Britishers, the Europeans who conquered the world never understood the real purpose behind their global dominance. In the book of Acts chapter 12, we see Peter being bound in chains and kept in prison. But God sent his angel and he was released. Now, it was not Peter who was released from the imprisonment, from the chains, but it was gospel which was released. When you as a people of God is released into certain situation, certain place or certain circumstances, when your position is favorable, good and strong, it is not just you or your ability, but it is the God behind you who has sent you with power and ability, and from you he wants to preach his message. He wants to give the people of the world the second option, the option called Jesus, because in him lays the salvation that humanity needs. And for that purpose, if necessary, he will raise not only kingdoms, but empires, the empires that are spread all across the world. Last time around, the Britishers failed to understand, but next time when the Lord will rise up his empire, hope we do not fail, because in gospel everything is there. In gospel is the salvation that we all need. Amen.